I didn't really have any idea what was going to go on up here when I was invited to come. I mean, I haven't touched the synthesizer in a very long time. I did a show out in Los Angeles with the Red Crayola a few years ago, and that was the first time I'd touched it in 15 years, and I haven't touched it since then. And I didn't really know what I would remember or do or anything else, and then it came to me that if there was an opportunity during this period, that I would like to try to play something with Robert, which is something we've never done before. I have a tone going, so whenever somebody plugs something together, it'll sound. And yesterday, it happened that the opportunity presented itself. And we just sat in here and played together for, I would have guessed, and as he would have, as we found out earlier today when somebody told us how long it had been, but I would have guessed we played for 20 or 30 minutes. Turned out we played for like an hour and a half. And we were just feeding off of each other. Sometimes I really didn't know what noise I was making and what noise he was making. I met a fellow completely by chance who was a student at the art school in Cleveland, and he was fooling around with electronics and lighting. He was taking fuzz tones and rewiring them so that they were oscillators, and he was horsing around with lighting, and we ended up I started just hanging out with him, and we were playing with these things just in his home, plugged into his home stereo. I mean, it was really kind of, instead of watching television or something. I ended up moving out to a place in the woods where I lived for a couple of years. And I had a series of these boxes. I had an enveloper that was in a wooden case, and I had a couple of these oscillators, and somebody who saw all this gear wired together said, you know, that all this junk comes in one box and it's called a synthesizer, and why don't you get one of those? And I don't even remember, the first company I knew anything about, this would have been in like 1971 or 2, somewhere in there. And the first company that I had ever even heard of, which was probably recommended to me by the guy who said that, was EML. And I bought a 200. The story I heard was that they had been funded by the state of Connecticut to develop a unit that could be put in elementary schools on which children could learn about electron music, and that they would be indestructible. Another story is that the original units came with a cinder block or something, and it made them heavy enough that people would be not inclined to try to take them from the schools. I don't know if it's a true story, but it's a good story. It didn't have any internal patching, as people may know. So you had to build, you know, something that made a noise. You couldn't just, you know, it didn't have any way to make a noise unless you made something. So it was interactive right from the beginning. the idea of playing notes was never interesting to me. I probably wouldn't have liked a keyboard instrument because I was only looking for triggering devices. I wasn't looking for, you know, a scale. You know, kind of word got around, you know, that I was doing this work, and I ended up making this one piece of music that these guys who were going to form this band found out about, and the band was just this almost like a concept piece where it didn't really matter what you played or how well you knew how to play it. It was sort of like if you were of a certain mindset, if you had a certain view of the world, you were asked to participate. And so we just got together and formed this band, which was Perubu. Initially, I would write down patches, you know, setups for certain songs, and I would change them from one song to the next. And I had a, you know, a title on the patch that went to the song and that kind of stuff. But within the framework of the patch, the way I played it every night was completely different. And over time, that evolved to a patch from which I could do many things. And then it went to no patch. Then it went to just, I would just get out at sound check and plug it together and play it, and it would be different one day to the next. It was funny when I was going to come up here and do this, there was mention of somebody who was calibrating the synthesizers, and I found that to be amusing because that was something that I would have never, ever considered doing. And I used to, the 200 has a spring reverb in it, and I would get the thing rocking by pushing on it until it rocked hard enough that the spring would hit itself and make a huge, you know, sound. You know, I was playing it like that. I wasn't interested in fine-tuning anything.
I had been interested in electronic music, John Cage or Hawkwind or Eno type of stuff, but no one had done it like Alan. I remember the first time I saw Alan play. It was November 11th, 1976. The sounds Alan did just changed my life. Because no one had done anything like that. And he just stood there and he looked like he's flying his plane, you know, and just cruising along and making these great sounds. And I remember talking to him after one show because I really wanted to get a synth, and it was like, what kind should I get? And he said, EML. So I'd gone down to Pi Corporation and got an EML. My finals project for electronics school was I built a theremin, and it was kind of tough. I mean, and I had no idea. I had my volume completely backwards, and because I'd never seen one played before. And I used to use that in old bands I was in, Savage Tractors, and then Home and Garden for a little bit. And
That's good.
We live on a farm, you know. And David had borrowed the theremin before I joined the band, and no one knew how to really use it. And when I got in the band, I used that much more. I love analog because it's always unpredictable, and it's like a wobbly machine, like an airplane or a bicycle that's kind of moving along, and you got to keep it moving. Who knows what's going to happen next? And that's part of the fun of it. It's always different. It's always live.
Maybe people have decided that the digital equipment is you know, less soulful than something that's more analog, more primitive, has more of a manual component to it.
Digital seems very cold and sterile to me sometimes. It's always the same. And if you want it always the same, you should listen to a record. If you want it human and fresh and real, you just do it different. It's just the nature of the machine.
It was interesting to be in a studio again, because I haven't been in a studio in, boy, like 1991, so 20-odd years. So that was, you know, interesting. And when I walked in, you know, a rush of memories, some good, some horrible, came back. But this was fun. Yesterday was fun. I got lost in it, which was what I mean, that's when it's at its best for me, is when I'm unaware of what's happening. And I had that experience yesterday, which was more than I expected, so it was really great. But, you know, somebody said something about expectations. I didn't have any coming in here with regard to this or that or any of it. It's all been kind of in the moment a surprise to me.